When you set up your work surface to iron onto, I tend to work on a table rather than an ironing board because I have much more surface to cover and play with. And then I have 2 pieces of baking parchment, non-stick silicone coated baking parchment. Then you choose which piece of Tyvek you want to work with. I've got a goldy green one at the moment. This is just going to be a sample. I shouldn't say just. You should never say just or only. Samples are terribly important. You don't use your best dressmaking scissors either. So let's start at the beginning and learn how we texture Tyvek. So we have our Tyvek. I've just cut an A4 sheet in half. And I've put some baking parchment underneath and on the top. Just a note about irons. This is quite a big, powerful iron. It's about 2,200 watts. You can use lower wattage irons. If you're not quite sure what the Tyvek's going to do and you haven't really used it before, then I'd recommend you turn it down to about medium, or maybe between medium and high, because Tyvek can move quite fast once you heat it. If you find that nothing in particular is happening, then turn your iron up. The only reason why your Tyvek won't texture is it isn't getting enough heat or the paint is too thick on it. So with the baking parchment underneath and on the top, the Tyvek in between, I'm literally going to stroke the Tyvek with the iron. You do not press. You need to have room for the Tyvek to bubble up. I think you can just see that that's starting to happen there. I've had more heat there, so that's why that's puckering up first. So I'll just, you can see that it's starting to move through the baking parchment and create some lovely textures. If you've got areas that aren't puckering up, then they need a bit more heat. Okay, the really important thing is you do not press down. You literally just rest the iron onto the baking parchment, just coming into contact with the Tyvek. So you've got some fabulous textures. What you get is ridges against the iron and bubbles away from the iron. And while it's still warm, you can shape it while it's hot. But obviously being careful not to burn your hands. It's not that hot, but you need to be a bit careful. And that will keep that shape should you wish it to. You can also open it out while it's still warm. You can also keep turning it over. Don't be just satisfied with the texture. When you're working with Tyvek, particularly for the first time, just see what will happen. What will happen if you keep turning it over? If you turn it over to the bubble side, then sometimes if you're lucky, the bubbles will pop and you'll get holes. But this is not an exact science. Again, I'm just coming into contact with the baking parchment and the Tyvek. I'm really not pressing down at all. You see there's a nice hole there now. So I just, there we go. It's starting to go nicely now. So while it's hot, you can shape it and pull it around. It's not too hot, but just be a little bit careful and it will kind of retain that shape. And if you've used metallic paint, you'll see that in the ridges, the metallic paint kind of gathers onto itself. You get some really lovely sparkly definitions and textures. It works really nicely. But it's not, this is not something you'd put onto a piece of work. It just looks like a piece of Tyvek. If you were put that onto a piece of work, people would just come up and say, oh, isn't that a nice piece of Tyvek? So you need to do something to it or change the shape of it to make it more interesting. So this is the heavyweight Tyvek, or the 75 gram that I've just melted. And now I'll show you how to work with the fabric weight Tyvek. So this is the fabric weight one. You can see that it's much less firm. It is almost like a piece of fabric. And it's blue on one side and kind of bronzy gold on the other side. It's slightly bigger than the piece I was using before. Because this is thinner, this moves much faster. So you do need to be very careful with this. If you iron Tyvek too much, it will go lacy before it disappears. And you can then flick it off the baking parchment if you've gone too far, and you've got a really pretty lacy effect. But there's not a very fine line between when it goes lacy and when it disappears. And although Tyvek isn't terribly expensive, You don't really want to waste it. So just do things slowly, don't rush it. So again, I'm just literally stroking, I'm kissing and caressing. You can see how fast this is going. This iron is on hot because I'm very impatient. If you want to do things more slowly, then just work with a cooler iron. So you can see how fast that moves. And that gives you a slightly different texture. It's not quite so obviously Tyvek. I prefer this to work with in my work because you get the texture, but it's not screaming at you. This is a piece of Tyvek. So I started on that side. So the ridges are on this side and the bubbles are on this side. I'm going to turn it over and iron the bubble side. Again, stroking. I can't stress enough. You do not press down. Otherwise, the Tyvek can't move. So there you go. I think you can, yes, you can see it moving while I'm ironing. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. There we go. And as you can see, the metallic paint has really gone quite dark now because it was quite a bronze color that I was working with. So you can see with the metallic paint in particular that in the veins or the little ridges that form with the Tyvek, the metallic paint kind of scrunches up and you get a deeper saturation of metallic. It's absolutely beautiful. I do love the textures, and obviously it's very organic. And the same with the fabric weight. You can see that the bronze paint has gone quite dark now. It's merging really nicely across into the blue without being too stripy. And then you've got all the gold metallic on the back. So it can be quite difficult to know which side you want to work sometimes. You can get very attached to pieces of Tyvek. We will have a bit of sparkle. These are heat transfer foils. They stick to glue. So they'll stick to Bondaweb or Vlisafix or Wonder Under, however you call it. They'll stick to double-sided tape, glue dots. They'll also, if you're very lucky and wearing your lucky knickers, they'll also stick to the ridges on the Tyvek. So let me show you. So I have another piece of Tyvek. This time I've got a blue piece that's painted red on the other side. And I'm just going to pop it in between my sandwich of baking parchment. I'm going to texture it, again, taking great care not to press down. You're not ironing sheets or jeans. If you do still iron things like that, I tend to just use the iron for playing with now. So I'm just giving some heat love to the Tyvek. There we go. It's moving quite fast, as you can see. So the reason why I tend to paint two different colors on the Tyvek, one on one side and one on the other, is that you do get really nice curl ups and you just get that flash of the color that's behind. Should you be interested? Now, I just wanted to show you how I foil Tyvek. Now, this isn't an exact art. It's not actually supposed to happen because there's no glue on here. You'll find, if you're lucky, that this will work. You always use foil color side up, not the shiny side up, it's the color side up. And this is gold foil. And again, I'm going to put it between the baking parchment. Now, this time, I'm not going to kiss, stroke and caress the Tyvek. I'm going to give it a bit of welly. I'm going to give it a bit of pressure. So I'm going to press down, wriggle the iron onto the texture, and then leave the iron off. So it's a process I call welly, wiggle, and off. In the time that it takes to say that, it should be the time it takes for everything to happen. And it has. So you can see that the gold foil has stuck to the ridges quite nicely. It tends to work on the ridge side better than the bubble side, but having said that, you'll probably do it and it'll work. So again, as I said, it's not an exact science. I will just try it on the bubbly side and see what happens. Of course, if you're using a bit of pressure, you're going to lose some of the texture of the Tyvek. So you have to decide what's more important, the foil or the texture. But again, welly as in pressure, wiggle as in scratch the iron against the bubbles, and then off. So welly, wiggle, and off. And of course it has worked when I've told you that it doesn't normally work. And obviously, as you're heating the Tyvek again, it's going to distress more again. So we've now got a really rather attractive little hole in the middle now, quite a nice little spirally thing going on there. So that's how you foil Tyvek. This is the heavyweight one. I'll just show you the lighter weight fabric weight one, and you can see the difference. So this is the fabric weight one. Gold on one side, blue on the other. I'll just give this a quick texture with the iron. So again, this is piss, stroke and caress. Very, very little pressure. You can see how quickly the Tyvek is moving while I'm heating it. So you can see it moving. There you go. Again, my iron is on hot, so I don't mind being very careful. So we have ridges against the iron and bubbles away from the iron. So I'm just going to, I'll still keep using this foil because there's still quite a lot on there. So pop it back in between the baking parchment. Because the foil is on a plastic carrier sheet, you don't want to have the iron next to the foil because it will melt it. And then your iron will be in an unhappy state. And that will be very irritating. So always use baking parchment on the top. So this time I'm going to do welly, wiggle and off. And just literally a bit of pressure, a bit of a wiggle, and then off. And then you hope it's worked because you're filming. Yeah. Just wait for the camera to focus. There we go. Takes a while, particularly when you're foiling, for the camera to focus. So there we go. So that's a rather lovely little piece of Tyvek. And again, I will just do the back of it as well. It won't be such a good contrast because this colour is a bit peachy and I'm using gold. So welly, wiggle, off. Don't take too long because obviously this is the thinner weight Tyvek. And it will disappear. So let's see if it's worked on the bubbles this time. Yeah, a little bit. Because you've used so much pressure, you've obviously flattened the Tyvek to a point. But that can be quite beautiful as well. Don't get too bogged down and don't get too stressed. You need to experiment with the Tyvek and, you know, spend a couple of days working with it if you can, because it is such a fabulous product. So that's the main process of texturing and foiling. Don't these samples look great? There's nothing like a bit of foil to get a girl excited.